Welcome, everyone. I'm Kimberly Boschman, and this is the Intentionally Intuitive podcast. In this episode, we are going to take a look at life path number 2 as well as life path number 11. So if you are an 11-2, this is also for you. We're going to look at those life path numbers and the possible influence of each zodiac sign. So I recommend listening to your sun, moon, and rising signs, if you know what they are, to sort of gain a greater understanding and a bigger perspective of what you could be working with those sun, moon, rising signs and your life path number, how they influence one another. I will provide timestamps down below so you can go directly to your sun, moon, rising signs. And I will also provide the calculations for the life path number in case you're not certain what yours is. You can calculate it and go from there. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into each of the zodiac signs. Okay, so if you are Aries, if you're an Aries sun, moon, or rising, and you're also a life path 11-2 or 2, then you've got some fire going on there, and you've also got the 2 energy, which is the water element. So let's take a look at the higher expressions of Aries as well as the lower expressions, and then we'll take a look at the higher and lower expressions of the 11-2 too. So you can kind of see like how the positive traits work together, how the negative or lower expressions kind of can sometimes be a little challenging or fight each other. And so it's going to be up to you through your challenges and through things that come up for you to find the balance that works for you, so that life path 2 energy, which is again water, doesn't put out the Aries fire that you've got going on with your sun, moon, or rising. Okay, so for Aries of course is a fire sign, and the higher expression of Aries is very passionate, motivated, confident, with relentless determination. Aries can be very direct in their approach, and so some of the positive traits of the 2, and again, the 11-2 is also, or not also, but it's a water sign. It's considered a water element. And it's more introverted. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. You've got this more extroverted masculine energy of Aries, and then you've got this more introverted feminine energy of the 2 that you're working with. So that can actually complement each other really, really well, because you can work at balancing those divine feminine, divine masculine energies from within. And so I think some of the challenges that surface for you will help you to do that. But just keep that in mind that, the characteristics of the 2, the 11-2 and the 2 are more introverted. Now, I will say if you are a master number 11, that of course is an extension of the 2, that as far as your work that you're meant to do is more extroverted. Your work is meant to be seen by a greater population. Okay, so just keep that in mind. The 2 energy, which is of course your life path and your core, is more introverted. So if you're an 11, you also kind of have that struggle a little bit where you want to be behind the scenes, but your work needs to be out in front of the population. So, and to assist, to inspire others, that sort of thing. Which, if you're an 11, that Aries energy, sun, moon, rising, will assist you in that. So that's actually a really good thing. For the 2 energy, it can be a little bit of push-pull, because again, it's more introverted, and Aries is more in your face, wants action, wants to go, go, go. And so you might feel a little bit of push and pull with that. Now, some of the positive traits of the 11-2 are the ability to work well with others. They're very sensitive. They are often very good team players. They're and this is the highest expression. They're very balanced. They are very cooperative. They're often very kind. They have a lot of tact and diplomacy. They're able to sort of be the peacemaker, right? Or the mediator in a situation. They're typically very sincere, they're very trustworthy, like you can believe what they say type thing. And they're often because they're so sensitive, they are often very intuitive or psychic. Okay, so if you look at the higher expressions of Aries as well as the higher expressions of the two, you can see how they kind of work well together. Aries energy, sun, moon, rising, will help to motivate the two to, put themselves out there, to be motivated in their purpose, their work, their relationships, whatever the case may be, and will assist them in finding that confidence. Because sometimes with twos, again, they like to sort of be behind the scenes, and self-doubt can creep in, of course, because we're human, and it can happen with any of the numbers. But with twos, there's sometimes that self-doubt, especially with 11 twos. And so Aries, sun, moon, rising will give you that, or assist you with giving you that confidence, so that you can have that determination to be motivated and be passionate about whatever it is that you're showing up to. So again, and you couple that with the sincerity and the cooperation and the tact and diplomacy of that two energy, and that's just a really good environment. That's just that creates a situation where people are even more drawn to you and want to be, a lot of times twos make great therapists or counselors, or anything where they're working to assist, bring balance to a situation, right? And so Aries can help to motivate that and give you that confidence that you need to be able to step into that peacemaker role much more confident, right? So it's actually very complementary. It can be very complementary, right? And you've kind of got the more sort of feminine energy of the two, which is more relaxed, I guess, at times. And then you've got this like fire energy of Aries, which is kind of pushing you. So you kind of, when they come together, it's a very beautiful combination. It's not too in your face, and it's not too relaxed to where there's no motivation. So again, the traits work really, really well together. And again, that Aries, if you are an 11, that Aries energy is giving you, again, that confidence that you're going to need, that motivation and that passion. Because again, as much as 11s hate to hear it, you're sort of meant to be out in the public, be out in the world, in the spotlight. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean that you yourself has to be out in the spotlight, but your work does. Your what you came here for, your greater mission. And the Aries sun, moon, rising positive aspects will assist you in getting there, which is great. Now, the lower expression of Aries is lack of patience, mood alteration. They can be kind of moody, quick to anger, impulsivity, aggressiveness, and martyrdom. Like, I'm going to save the world needs me to save them type thing. And they can get really caught up in that, kind of like this really warrior energy that's taken to the extreme. The lower expressions of the two, or the 11-2, they can be very timid. They can have a lot of anxiety. They can really lack confidence. They also can be very, very moody in their negative expression. They can be prone to indecisiveness. They can be worriers, and they can be hyper sensitive. And so if you couple those two together, right? Like if you're in your lower expression of your 2 or 11-2, and you're in your lower expression of Aries, lack of patience with, lack of confidence and moodiness and anxiety and indecisiveness. And then you've got aggressiveness and martyrdom. You've got a lot going on there, right? The pot is being stirred. And, it just kind of promotes that you would sort of, if you're a 2, sort of become a little bit more reclusive, but in that reclusivity, you become more angry, depressed, frustrated, worried, whatever the case may be, more cynical. And then with the 11, it again pushes you away from stepping out into the world. Or if you do step out into the world, you're not stepping out into the world, with your highest expression of bringing people together, inspiring, being that natural born healer. You're stepping out into the world, like fueling the fire of aggression and, causing conflict, when really at your core as a 2, you're meant to be the peacemaker, the balance mediator, right? And so if you've got that lower expression of Aries coming in, that's lack of patience and moody and quick to anger and impulsive and aggressive. And then you've also got that coupled with the negative traits of the 2, which is like can be can be moody and can be indecisive and lack that confidence, again, you're going to overcompensate with the ego and show up to situations very aggressively. And that's just not the expression of the 11 or the 2 that you want to be presenting. So again, it's not a bad thing to be in the lower expression of these energies. It's when we fall into those lower expressions, which happens throughout our lifetimes, right? We fall in and out. It's not something you necessarily master. You just figure out, you gain the tools and the wisdom to be able to move out of them more quickly, right? But, if you were to find yourself in both of those lower expressions, again, it's not a bad thing. It's just that there are lessons to be learned there. And you will figure out what those lessons are by the challenges that surface for you. So, if you say, how will I know if I'm in my lower expression? You'll know because of the challenges that surface for you. So pay attention to those challenges, right? Like if you see that you are just, always being the antagonist in the situation and you're a 2, then you are probably in your lower expression of your 2, and you're probably in a lower expression of Aries. Because again, Aries is all about self and putting yourself out into the world or your work or whatever, but being very passionate about it and feeling that passion and harnessing that energy, that creative life force energy, and doing something good with it. And coupling Aries energy with 2 energy is actually really beautiful if you can learn to work with that fire, right? In a way that doesn't sort of dry up your water, right? So yeah, it's going to be a balancing act for you if you, again, are 11, 2, and Aries. Sun, moon, rising. But that's okay. It's actually, once you figure out your equilibrium, your balancing act, it's actually really beautiful energies to work with, right? And again, you can figure out when you're in that lower expression just because of the challenges that surface for you and how you are presenting yourself to the world, right? If you're a constant worrier or you're like hypersensitive or you cannot make a decision to save your life, then you're probably in your lower expression of the 2 energy. Whether you're an 11 or a 2. And just for the record, 11s are life path 2s. 11s are just an extension of that energy. But anyway, so you can kind of gauge it based on how you're showing up, how you're feeling, how you're, the challenges that surface for you. But overall, Aries energy is great for 2s. It gives you that boost of confidence. It gives you that little oomph that you need, or big oomph that you need to, have that confidence and to present yourself in the way that your soul came here and wanted to. So I hope this is helpful. Take care, everyone. Bye for now. Taurus, if you are a sun, moon, or rising sign that is Taurus, and you're also a life path number 11, 2, 11's 2 is your life path number. 11 is the extension of that. So throughout this reading, I'm just going to say 2s, but this also applies to 11s. Okay. I hope that makes sense. But if you are a Taurus, sun, moon, rising, or an 11, 2, this is for you. So let's take a look at the higher and lower expressions of the Taurus energy, as well as the higher and lower expressions of the 2 energy. And you can kind of get a sense for how, what you're working with, where these two energies complement one another, and where you might feel a little bit of stagnation or push and pull when it comes to the energies. So for Taurus is an earth sign, and some of the higher expressions of Taurus energy can be a strong desire for social and corporate stability. Okay, like getting a job and maybe staying there for a while, right? And moving up the ladder or whatever the case may be, or having some kind of social standing where they're, held in high regard within society. They also can tend to have sort of an extravagance for the finer things in life. They tend to like more being content, to feel secure and stable. They're very dependable. They're dedicated in life and in love. And so what's really beautiful about this actually is these earth energies of Taurus actually work really beautifully and complement the 2 energy. And I'll go over that. Let's look at the positive traits of the 2, and you can kind of see how they complement one another. The 2 energy is very sort of introverted energy. it's more of a water element. So you have the earth element of Taurus with the water element of the 2. And so they really kind of work well together. They complement one another. The positive traits of the 2 are, again, ability to work well with others, which is beautiful for Taurus energy, right? Because Taurus wants that social and corporate stability, and you have to be able to work well with others in order to achieve that. They can be 2 energy can be very cooperative, kind, tactful, and have a sense of diplomacy. They're the peacemakers. They're the mediators, right? They can often be very sincere, and again, they're typically very good team players. And so again, this complements. This is exactly what Taurus energy thrives off from. So again, it's kind of like if you have Taurus, sun, moon, or rising, and then you are a 2 life path or an 11-2, the Taurus energy is really giving you that extra oomph to be able to really step into the higher expressions of the 2 energy. Because again, they work so well together. They want the same things. Those energies are working towards the same highest or higher expression, right? The higher octave. So they complement each other very, very well. Where things can get a little bit tricky for having Taurus, sun, moon, or rising, as well as a 2 energy, is in the lower expressions, right? And this is where we all meet our challenges. But for Taurus and 2s, it's not that you're necessarily going to have like a push-pull energy as much as you're going to have sort of that energy of like holding you back, becoming stagnant, just getting so comfortable that you just never step outside your comfort zone, right? So the lower expressions of the Taurus energy can be stubbornness, not willing to take risks or leave their comfort zone. And that one's a really important one because 2 energy being more introverted, if they are in their lower expression, they can lack confidence, they can be indecisive, they can fall into a deep depression because they become so introverted and so behind the scenes that they're afraid to put themselves out there. And so again, if you're in the lower expression of Taurus, which again is like that, not willing to leave your comfort zone, which most of our growth, most of our expansiveness happens outside of that zone. So if you've got those Taurus energies kind of pulling you back, saying, oh, we're not taking this risk, we're too comfortable. And then you've got the 2 energy and its lower expression, who's that worrier or, indecisive or lacking that confidence or very timid and having anxiety, then you're going to like feed into those, those lower expressions are going to feed into each other, and they're going to keep you stuck and keep you from moving forward, right? And that's where you're going to see your challenges come in, and it's up to you how you work through those challenges to hopefully overcome them so that you can pull the wisdom and the tools that you need to be able to level up to a higher octave, right? To get you out of that rut. Some other lower expressions of Taurus is that they can be very predictable and very rigid in their beliefs and actions, okay? So they can be very set in their ways. And again, it just kind of feeds back into that unwillingness to sort of leave their comfort zone and see what else is out there. Now, again, 2s like to be behind the scenes. And so, again, you can feed into that and be like, well, this is really comfortable. I don't need to know what else is out there because I have everything I need right here. And again, sometimes that's an okay thing, but sometimes it's a false sense of security where you're really missing out on life because you're not taking that leap of faith. You're not stepping outside your comfort zone. You're not exploring, right? You're not mingling with other people. And you, by being a 2, are the peacemakers, the mediators, the ones who are meant to work with other people, to bring people together. It's a relationship energy. 2 energy is a relationship energy. So you can't have relationships if you're tucked away, with anxiety and fear about stepping outside your comfort zone and meeting new people or whatever the case may be. So you can see how the lower negative traits sort of feed off one another, right? Now, if you're an 11, if you are a master level energy 11-2, then this can be really detrimental for you if you're in your lower Taurus energy, because again, that stubbornness, like feeling like, you're meant to, as an 11, you're meant to inspire others, inspire the world through your work, through your inspiration, to help other people find their voice, to be inspired, to use their voice, right? To empower other people through their inspiration. And if you're stuck in your comfort zone and you're not trying new things, you're not being creative. Because think about it, like 11 energy has a creative life force. We all do, but it has a creative life force moving through them that they're meant to express, because through that creativity, they're meant to inspire others. Through their inspiration, they're meant to inspire others. Well, if you're stuck in your comfort zone and you're not taking any risk, you're not, leaving the comfort of your cozy, warm home, and you're sort of being reclusive or very predictable and rigid in your beliefs and actions, then you're not embracing that creativity. You're not exploring it. You're not seeing, you're not moving into the next step. So it can actually be really crippling for 11 energy if you have Taurus, Sun, Moon, Rising, and you're in the lower expressions of that Tauran energy. So, and again, you will know because of the challenges that surface for you around that energy. And then you try to find your way out of it by, finding the tools to help you, move through it, whether that's therapy, whether it's, using outside resources, whether it's just taking some time to play and be creative, right? There's a whole, depends on each individual how they do that. But the lower expressions are not a bad thing. They're going to show you where it is that you're stuck, where it is that your challenges are coming up, to highlight for you where it is that you need to do some work to elevate yourself into your higher expression of those energies, into the higher expression of the Taurus energy, into the higher expression of the 11 or the 2, right? So again, Taurus energy with 2 energy is very, very complementary, very beautiful, it's very helpful to have Taurus, Sun, Moon, or Rising with 11-2 energy. But again, with those lower expressions, it can be very detrimental as well. If you're not careful, if you don't continue to find your balance, because it can hold you back in a big way. It can cause you to be that reclusive hermit who is just never interacting with the world and never getting your voice out there, never getting your inspiration out there, never getting your gifts out there. So overall good energy, but again, as we can see with all of the signs, the lower expression can be really a hindrance. But again, it's not a bad thing. It's an opportunity to learn something new. That's a new lesson. So I hope this was helpful, and I will see you all again soon. Gemini. So if you are a Gemini, Sun, Moon, or Rising, and you are also a 2 life path number, or you have the master energy 11, so 11-2s, this reading is for you. And 11s, for the most of the part of this reading, I'm just going to refer to the energy as 2, but that is your life path number, so this is for you. Okay, so let's take a look at the higher and lower expressions of both Gemini and the 2 and 11 energies, so that we can kind of see how they complement one another and how they might create a push-pull energy, or how they could sort of be detrimental for one another, and how, what challenges could surface around that for you to work through. So Gemini, of course, is an air sign, and Geminis are known to be very adaptable, very easygoing, super intelligent, again, outgoing and social, very perceptive to their surroundings and what's going on, right? They're very tuned in. They can be very analytical and inquisitive, and they're highly passionate about their relationships, their career, whatever comes in that sort of piques their interest. They can be very passionate about that. When we look at 2 energy, or of course 11 energy as well, the 2 energy is more sort of introverted, okay? Now 11 energy, I will mention this, 11 energy is more extroverted, or it's meant to be, at least the work is meant to be. What you produce, what you put out for the world is meant to obviously be extroverted, because you're meant to inspire others through your work. So obviously that's an extroverted energy, which for you all, for the 11s, this Gemini energy, Sun, Moon, Rising, will be very beneficial for you. in helping you to sort of step out that comfort zone of your sort of more maybe introverted nature and help to get you out there. For the 2, again, it's more of an introverted energy. It's more of a water sign or water element. And if you look at the positive traits of the 2, you can see how the Gemini energy complements these 2 energies. So positive traits of the 2 are they are able to work with others when they're in their highest expression. They're able to work with others very, very well. They are team players. They're very balanced. They are cooperative, kind, tactful, and they have a sense of diplomacy about them. They can be the peacemaker and the mediator, and they're often very, very sincere. They can be very intuitive and very psychic as well, because again, they're very sensitive. Remember, they're sort of a water element. So when we look at the higher expressions of Gemini, being very adaptable, that is such a key element. That adaptability is such a key element for 2s, because again, as sort of at your core, you are the peacemaker. You are the one that brings people together. You are the mediator, the one who can see all sides and figure out a common ground, right? And again, bring people together. And so if you have to be sort of adaptable, because not everybody has the same opinions or the same ideas. And so you have to be adaptable to be able to see all sides of things and to not let it sort of ruffle your feathers, but to find a very peaceful and harmonious center for people to meet sort of in the middle. So that adaptability comes in very, very beneficially with that Gemini sun, moon, rising. And again, Gemini is being very easygoing. They can typically get along with pretty much anybody, right? They're very chameleon in that sense. They're, again, very adaptable and very easygoing. And so that, again, just feeds into the positive traits of the 2 with that, cooperative energy and that, just being able to really be a team player and ability to work well with others. That's the thing where Gemini and the 2 just really sort of mesh so beautifully together. They support one another. Those energies support one another to assist you, sort of the vehicle, in being able to do your work, do what you came here to do, right? Now, Gemini, and this is good, Gemini is more outgoing and social, where the 2 energy can be a little bit more reserved, introverted. They're going to be, obviously, they're like the mediator and the peacemaker, and they can work well with others, but they often tend to be, or would like to be, behind the scenes, right? Maybe they're the computer programmer who is doing computer work that assists other people to help make their life easier or something, right? It's kind of like they like to kind of be behind the scenes. But that Gemini, if you also have Gemini sun, moon, rising, you may be more of an extroverted 2, right? Someone who likes to be out in the public. Maybe you are like an actual mediator for, relationships, or a counselor for relationships or something like that, where you are out in the public and you're, I can't really think of an example, but again, that Gemini energy is going to give you that social aspect that puts your gifts out in the forefront. Now, if you're an 11-2, this is even better, because again, as an 11, your work is meant to be, that's the purpose. You're here to have your work seen by others, have your inspirations seen by others to help inspire them. And so the sociability of the Gemini energy will assist you in that, right? It gives you that push, that, what you need to be able to communicate, whether it's with your greater community, whether it's with your colleagues, whether it's with, the world. That Gemini aspect will give you that social piece, right? Even though you've still got that 2 energy that's like, I would rather be behind the scenes and not seen. The Gemini is giving you the ability to communicate really, really well, and to, again, bring people are going to be drawn to you, right? And because of that social aspect, there's a piece of you that, even if it's like you prefer smaller groups, there's still that piece of you that's got the Gemini that's like kind of pushing you to be more social. So it's a very positive thing. It's very good. It's very helpful. So yeah, and then also the analytical and inquisitive side of Gemini is good, because it's kind of like, if you are that person who's a 2 and you're meant to be the peacemaker, or again, the mediator, or the one who finds the balance, you need to be sort of analytical and inquisitive. You need to understand all sides of things. You can't just fall into an extreme, because if you fall into an extreme, you can't possibly see the other polarity. You have to be able to see, like, be all seeing, right? And all knowing, I guess, right? So that you can find the common space, the common ground, to help bring people there, to bring people together. Okay. Now, some of the lower expressions of Gemini are indecisiveness, impulsivity, unreliability, difficulty in planning things, and a tendency to be inconsistent. So when you look at the lower expressions of the 2, you've got being very timid, anxiety, lack of confidence, being moody, indecisiveness, which is also a Gemini trait, a worrier, being hypersensitive. So you can kind of see how it's like, both Gemini lower expression and 2 lower expressions have that indecisiveness. So if you are in both of those lower expressions, forget ever making a decision. You are all constantly looking to the external world to tell you what to do. And the problem with that is that can throw you into an extreme, and then you're not able to see all sides of things, right? Because you're easily influenced. So also the difficulty with, or the impulsivity and the, unreliability and those sort of things, again, you can see how that would feed into you not being able to step into your 2 energy or your 11 energy, right? And then you couple that with the negative traits of like being timid and having a lot of like high anxiety or lack of confidence. They just sort of really feed into each other to halt your progress, to sort of stagnate you. So it's kind of like, especially if you are an 11 and you're meant to be, finding your way out into the world and sharing your gifts with the world in a big way. And you've got the lower expression of Gemini being inconsistent or being overly impulsive or being unreliable. Remember, it's kind of like people trust what they can rely upon, right? And people will trust who they can rely on. And so if you're unreliable or, can't plan things, or you're constantly being flaky or that sort of thing, especially as an 11, it's going to, you're probably going to have negative experiences with that. And that is going to sort of hit your confidence, and which, you probably already have some kind of lack of confidence if you're in your lower expression of your 11 or your 2. So it just kind of like compounds all of that, right? And it just kind of, again, being 2, if you're a 2 or 11-2 and you're in your lower expression and you're hypersensitive, then again, anything anybody does, you take it personal, you just spiral out of control, So you can see how it's kind of like the Gemini lower expression and the 2 lower expression are just, they can be a little bit crippling. And again, the lower expressions are not a bad thing. It simply allows you to see, you'll see where you're in those lower expressions because of the challenges that surface. So if challenges are coming up for you, that's your call to take a closer look at, why do I feel this way? Why am I facing this? Why do I constantly hit this same barrier? Why am I not progressing? Why am I not moving forward? Right? Like, so look at those challenges and see, like, instead of getting, overly frustrated by the challenges or taking it personally, ask yourself, what am I meant to learn through this experience? What am I meant to learn through this struggle, through this challenge? And then that will show you where it is that you are in a lower expression of either your Gemini, Sun, Moon, Rising, or your 2 or 11 energies. And it'll kind of, once you're aware of what it is that, the challenge is, then you can seek the resources to assist you to move out of those challenges, and then pull the wisdom and the tools from that experience so that you can use them in the future, right? So you can see how the Gemini, Sun, Moon, Rising higher expressions really assist the 2 energy or the 11 energy to help push you, to, again, have that confidence, to share your gifts, to be inquisitive, to, analyze the situation more, to be more decisive. That's a key too, right? It's like those higher expressions of Gemini will assist you in being more decisive. once you kind of continue to gain confidence. And then you can also see, like we talked about, the lower expressions sort of feeding into each other and just causing that sort of chaos and discord. But that's life. That's what happens, right? And we never master that. We just figure out how to, once we fall into a lower expression, how to move out of it. So, but overall, Gemini is very complementary to to energy, and it's actually very, very beautiful. Same thing with 11 energy. So I hope that this was helpful. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye for now. Cancer. If you are Cancer Sun, Moon, Rising, as well as a 2 life path number or a Master 11-2 energy, then this reading is for you. 11s, I'm mostly going to refer to you as a life path 2 because that is your life path number. 11 is an extension of that. If there's something that you need to know in addition to the 2 energy, then of course I will add that as needed. So Cancer, what's interesting about this is 2 energy is actually considered water element, and it's actually considered the equivalent of Cancer energy. So for you all, it's like you are getting like a double or triple or quadruple dose of this Cancerian energy through your 2. So it's kind of like if you have Cancer, Sun, Moon, Rising, or more, or all of those, one of those or all of those or multiple, it's kind of like your soul decided, you know what, we are mastering this 2 energy in this lifetime, and we've got all the resources to be able to do it. So it's happening, right? It's kind of like no holds barred here. But you will see a lot of similarities between the Cancerian energy and the energy of the 2 and the 11, which is really complementary. With that said, it's very complementary, but it can also be very debilitating if you are in your lower expressions of both the 2 and the Cancerian energy. It can be very, very debilitating. And that's where you're going to meet most of your challenges. And I think that's where having Cancerian energy can be very challenging if you are a life path 11-2, okay, or 2, right? So let's take a look at the higher and lower expressions of Cancer as well as the 2 energy. So Cancer, of course, is a water sign. It's often considered to be very nurturing energy, very sensitive, compassionate, security seeking. It likes to be home with family, with loved ones. It often seeks deep, intimate connections with other people, right? Cancers are if they're in their higher expressions, they're very loyal and very protective. And they're also very intuitive and psychic. Now, let me go over the higher expressions of the 2, and you'll see the similarities. So for 2, again, this is a more introverted energy, similar to Cancerian energy. It's also considered a water element. The positive traits of the 2 are ability to work well with others, very sensitive, often a very good team player. They're usually very balanced. They're very cooperative, very kind, very tactful, and often use diplomacy very well. They can be the peacemakers, the mediators, and they're often very, very sincere. They are also considered to be very intuitive and psychic. So again, if you look, it's almost like mirror images of the Cancerian energy with the higher expressions of the 2 energy. So you can see how it's kind of like just giving you more of what you need to be able to step into that life path number, into that 2 energy. So, and same thing with the 11 energy. It's all of those things push you to really step into your 11 energy. The only thing with having heavy Cancer energy, if you are an 11, right? If you are a Master 11, or you're meant to step into the 11 energy, the only thing that I can see that would be a hindrance is because that Cancerian energy is also sort of more introverted. It's more, again, security seeking. It's more nurturing. It's more, more home life situated, which isn't a bad thing. It's a very beautiful energy. It's very compassionate and all those things. But where can be a hindrance for the 11 is because the 11 is really meant to step out into the world, right? And so the only thing I would say kind of be aware of is if you have that Cancer energy that's like really a little more introverted. Then you've got the 2 energy that's a little more introverted, and you're meant to kind of step out in the world with your work as an 11. That can be overly challenging for you, I think. And that's just something you're going to have to work with and figure out and work through. Because you're definitely going to feel the pull with both the 2 energy and the Cancer energy to be more, I guess, reserved, or like, more reclusive in a sense, or more introverted. And so, again, not a bad thing, but for an 11, it can be challenging because you're going to also feel that pull from that 11 energy to step out into the world, to share your gifts, to do something in a way that is inspiring not only to yourself, but to others as well. And so you can't do that from a reclusive state, right? So that's all I would say about that. But otherwise, the Cancerian energy really just, magnifies the energy of the 2. And it's actually really beautiful. So you're just getting more of a good thing, right? Really more of like what that 2 life force energy signifies. So it's actually really beneficial, really beautiful. And then the lower expressions, this is where it could really cause some issues for both the 2s and the 11s. So the lower expression of Cancer is being very withdrawn, being overly emotional, being moody, being overly sentimental, which can keep them stuck in their past, right? Being vindictive, lacking emotional maturity. And so if you look at the negative traits of the 2, we've got being timid, anxiety, lack of confidence, moodiness, indecisiveness, being a worrier, and being hypersensitive. So again, where you've got all of this Cancerian energy really pushing you into stepping into your 2 life path in the higher expression, in the lower expression, it's really pulling you down into those lower negative traits of the 2. So again, it's just compounded because it's just kind of like looking in a mirror. So it's basically the same higher and lower expressions of each other. But again, if you're in a higher expression of your 2 energy, but then you've got the Cancerian energies and you're in your lower expressions and they're really pulling you down, again, it just sort of compounds those energies. So I would say for you all, it's kind of like if you've got heavy Cancer energy and you're a 2, when you're in your higher expression, it's really, really good because you've got all this Cancer energy pushing you to really excel in those areas, right? Because 2s are meant to be those peacemakers, those mediators, those, the ones who are bringing people together and not falling into extremes. If you are in the lower expression, though, of Cancer, or you're 2 and you're withdrawn or you're overly emotional or you're vindictive, right? And you fall into those sort of like creating chaos or holding having a vendetta against people or, being cynical or whatever those, whatever comes up, that's going to throw you into an extreme and that's going to keep you from stepping into your elevated state of a 2 energy. So I would just say, when it's good, it's probably really, really good. When it's bad, it's probably really, really bad. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that when you're in your lower expressions of 2 and your Cancerian energies, you're going to face probably very challenging challenges. But those challenges are actually really good because they're assisting you to see when you fall into your lower expressions and what you need to do to be able to get out of them so that you can elevate higher into, again, a higher expression. So it's not a bad thing, but I can see how it would be very challenging if you fall into the lower expressions. But that doesn't mean you can't get out of them. That doesn't mean that you won't acquire the tools you need to be able to do that and the resources and the wisdom so that when it happens in the future, because it's going to happen, that's just part of life. We fall in and out of those lower expressions, but when it happens, you have the tools to be able to lift yourself out of it, which is going to be really key for you all. And I think you'll just have to work a little bit harder than some of the other signs to be able to do that because, Cancerian energy in the lower expression is very withdrawn, right? And so 2 energy in its lower expression is very withdrawn. And so again, it's like, you just have to be able to work. And 2 energy can be very prone to to things like depression because they become so withdrawn that they lose touch with the outside world, right? So again, You just have to be mindful of that, and it can be a little bit more challenging for you because it's so compounded with that Cancerian energy. But on the flip side of that, when you're in your higher expression of both energies, it's really, really good. Like it's really propelling you. It's really, you feel like you're in purpose, and it's actually a really powerful, beautiful energy to work with. So just kind of keep all that in mind. And then same thing with the 11s. If you fall into your lower expression and Cancerian energy and you're an 11 and you become, overly emotional and withdrawn and vindictive, that's just so far removed from what, an 11 energy is meant to be, right? Like you are not meant to be feeling the fire, feeling the chaos or feeling divisiveness or anything like that. You're supposed to be bringing people together and inspiring them to use their own voice and to find their own empowerment through their own creations and that sort of thing. And so you can see how it's like it can be detrimental, but nothing that you aren't capable of overcoming, because your soul chose these energies for a reason. So it's just about figuring out what it is you're meant to learn from it. So I hope that this was helpful. Thank you all, and I will see you all again soon. Leos, if you are a Leo sun, moon, or rising, and you are also a 2 life path number or a 11-2 life path number, then this reading is for you. 11s, I will be referring to you all as 2s because ultimately that is your life path number. If there's something you need to know as an 11, then I will add that as it's appropriate. So let's go ahead and get into this. So Leo, we've got, of course, a fire sign with Leo. And I want to look at the higher and the lower expressions of Leo, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the energy of the 2 so that you can kind of see how they work together, how they complement one another, how, why your soul might have chosen to come here as a Leo and a life path 2. And then we're going to look at the lower expressions so that you can kind of see how you might be in a little bit of a tug of war with these energies, or how they can kind of hinder your progress. And so you know what you're kind of working with. So Leo is, of course, a fire sign, and Leos are known to be, when they're in their higher expression, natural leaders. They have a drive unlike many others. They are very compassionate with big, lion hearts. They can be very generous with their time, their energy, and their money. And they're very self-assured. They have a lot of confidence. And so that alone, that confidence is something that will really assist you as a 2 or an 11, right? Like really boost your confidence and push you to get out into the world. And so some of the higher expressions of the 2, let's look at that. So the 2 energy is what we would consider like water element. It's more introverted. So let's take a look at that. So you've got this Leo energy that's a fire sign that's more extroverted, right? It's got this drive and it's got this confidence and it's like roar, right? And then you've got the 2 energy, which is more introverted. It's softer energy. It's more feminine energy. And where I would say Leo energy feels more masculine. And so you kind of got, again, it's going to be a balancing act for you all to not let your 2 energy, which is water, put out your Leo energy, which is fire, or not let your fire energy dry up the water energy, which is the 2, right? So it's going to be a little bit of a balancing act to find your equilibrium. And that's going to be something that you'll do throughout your life to find that. And then once you find that, being able to find your way back to that, right? Because you're working with some really strong energy with the Leo energy. If you have Leo, sun, moon, rising, you've got some strong fire energy coming in. And that can be a little overwhelming for your 2 energy, which is, like I said, it's a little bit softer. So some of the higher expressions or the positive traits of the 2 are that they are able to work well with others. They are often very sensitive. They can be great team players. They're usually very balanced when they're in their higher expression. They are very cooperative. They're very kind. They usually have tact and diplomacy. They're usually the peacemakers, the mediators. They make great counselors or therapists. People are usually drawn to them and usually open up pretty quickly to these people because they feel safe with them. There is a level of sincerity with 2s, again, where people just trust you, just almost innately. And 2s are very intuitive and psychic, again, that sort of water energy. So you can kind of see the more feminine aspects of the two energy when they're in their higher expression. They're very sensitive. They're very kind and cooperative. Again, being the peacemaker. They're not burning down bridges. They're building bridges, right? They're mending bridges. They're bringing people together. And so where that Leo fire energy can be really positive and very complementary is that it gives you that confidence that you need to be able to step into a situation and to find ways to assist, right? Without doubting yourself, without doubting, well, everybody else is doing this. Why would I come in and say that we should look at this, right? So it kind of gives you that confidence that you might be lacking. Twos can often lack confidence when they're in their shadow. And so that fire energy is almost giving you that drive and that confidence that you need to be able to assist people in the way that you want to be able to assist them, right? And there's just a natural leadership energy with Leos. So again, it gives you that confidence. And, Leos are, when they're in their higher expression, they're very compassionate and they have very big hearts. And you can see how that just very much complements the energy of the two, which again are those peacemakers. And people are drawn to them because they feel safe with them. And so if you couple that with that Leo energy of the big hearts and the very generous energy, that's just a very beautiful combination, right? That most people would want to be a part of. And then also, we've got this sort of very confident, very self-assured, very driven energy of the Leo, which can very much assist 11 energy. Because again, 11s, you're meant to be inspired, right? To be creative and be inspired. And then your inspiration will inspire others to find their own inspiration, their own creativity, and to use their own voice and their own gifts. But in order to do that, you need that leadership capability. You need to be able to step into that role of feeling confident in yourself and your gifts to be able to inspire others through who you are and what you put out there, right? Without second guessing, without criticizing yourself or whatever the case may be. And that Leo energy can just really give you, like, light the fire beneath you to step more securely into that 11 energy, right? So it's very, very positive. And then, like I said, that just big-hearted, compassionate nature just really complements the two energy just beautifully. But with that confidence, I keep going back to the confidence because that's something that 2s and 11s can really lack, especially when they're kind of moving through life and they fall into their shadow side. So it's good to have that Leo energy behind you to be like, no, we got this. We're going to figure this out, where you can feel that sort of fire burning within you. The lower expressions of the Leo are more egotistical, stubborn in nature, very arrogant, dominating, possessive, jealous, pompous. They can be very self-absorbed. The lower expressions of the 2 are sort of the opposite of that a little bit. Again, because it's the more feminine, like it's more like wounded feminine energy, whereas Leo is more like wounded masculine energy when it's in its lower expression. So for the 2, you've got the very timid energy, anxiety, lack of confidence, very moody, indecisive, a worrier, hypersensitive. So where the Leo energy is like, roar, I'm going to like take over the situation and dictate what's going to happen. The 2 energy, when it's in its negative, is just very much like, I'm going to withdraw. I'm going to be very easily influenced. I'm going to allow others to tell me what to do because I don't have enough confidence to be able to make a decision for myself. I'm going to worry about the future. I'm going to worry about the present. I'm going to worry about what I said in the past. And so again, you can see how both of these energies are very debilitating. But when you couple them together, right? Like if you're in your lower expression of Leo and your lower expression of the 2, then you've got this wounded masculine and wounded feminine energies just kind of coming head to head. And it can just kind of feel like a tornado within you, and kind of like you've got a lot of different, like a split personality going on or something. It can feel very disorienting, like you don't know who you are, right? Like, one side of you feels very timid and the other side of you feels really aggressive. or stuck in your ego, or, very stubborn, or whatever the case may be. And then the 2 energy is like, well, I'm not going to share my opinion because who cares anyway, right? So it's kind of like, and you can see how both of those lower expressions are hindering you from stepping into the higher expressions of both energies, of the Leo and of the 2 or the 11, right? So it's kind of like when we fall into our lower expressions, then we get the challenges that help to highlight where those, where it is that we've fallen out of balance. And then we can work, through that awareness, we can work to figure out how to overcome it. But so it's kind of good if you're aware of those lower expressions. If you have Leo, Sun, Moon, Rising, and you're an 11 or you're a 2, and you're just not making the progress you want to make, or you're alienating people. Remember, 2 energy and 11s, that is your core. 2 energy is meant to bring people together. It is not meant to divide people. If you're shaming other people, if you're being aggressive towards other people, if you are trying to dictate to other people, if you are doing anything that causes a divide, then you are removed from your 2 energy. You are not in alignment with your 2 energy. And so I could see, if you are in your lower expression of Leo, that will fuel the divide. That will fuel the aggressiveness, right? And so you move further and further away from stepping into balance with that 2 energy. And so it's just a matter of figuring out how to get back into alignment. And a lot of times the only way to do that is to move through the challenges that we face, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So you figure it out as you move through the challenges, right? And don't worry, if you don't figure it out, you'll get another challenge. You'll get another lesson, right? And that's fine. That's life. We just move in and out of those lower expressions, and then we figure out ways to come out of them, move to the higher elevation. And then sometimes we dip back down and we just figure it out again. So, but you can kind of see how if you have Leo, Sun, Moon, Rising, if you've noticed that sort of like push-pull energy from within, that could be why, right? So I hope that this was helpful. Thanks, everyone, and I'll see you again soon. Virgos, if you are a Virgo Sun, Moon, Rising, and you are also a Life Path 2 or a Life Path 11-2, then this reading is for you. 11s, I'm going to mostly refer to you as 2s because ultimately that is your life path number. If there's something that you need to know as an 11, then I will, of course, insert that as needed. So let's go ahead and take a look at the higher and lower expressions of both Virgo and the 2 so that you can kind of see how they work together, how they work against each other, what you need to know so that you can sort of mitigate and manage these energies that you chose to have in this lifetime. So Virgo is, of course, an earth sign, and they are known to be very humble. When they're in their highest expression, they are known to be humble, practical, industrious, very kind, empathetic, methodical, and quick thinkers, okay? They are known to be hardworking and responsible, and they're also known for their big hearts. I know a tremendous amount of Virgos, and they all have the biggest hearts. And so those are some of the higher expressions of Virgo. So let's take a look at the higher expressions of the 2 energy. So 2 energy is more introverted, and I would say that Virgo energy is probably a little more introverted as well. And so they complement each other in that way. 2 energy is more of a water element, so more emotive, a lot of emotions going on in there. Some of the positive traits of the 2 are the ability to work well with others. They're very sensitive. They are good team players. They're very balanced in nature. They're very cooperative. They're very kind. They have a lot of tact and diplomacy. They are the peacemakers and the mediators. They are often very sincere in their words and their actions. And they are often very intuitive and psychic. So if we look at the positives of the Virgo, we've got that humble nature, right? Which is beautiful energy with the 2 because you really have to be sort of humble when you're working with people and trying to bring them together, right? Again, 2s make great therapists, mediators. They can make great, even political leaders if they want to, because they mend the bridge that has been burnt by, people who don't have the same innate gifts that the 2 has. So that humbleness assists 2s in again, just being very modest and seeing all sides without judgment, right? And without ego. There's not a lot of ego that's involved in a higher expression of it. Let's put it this way. The ego is involved, but it's not in control when it comes to higher expression of Virgo and twos. So again, it just kind of, the Virgo energy assists the two to step into what they came here to do in this lifetime. So it's really beautiful energy, that humbleness. Virgos are very practical. They're very good about getting the work done, getting the job done, getting it done right the first time, that sort of thing. They don't leave a lot of room for error type thing. That can sometimes be not a great thing either, because it can throw them into being a perfectionist. But for the higher expression, that dedication and that sort of methodical, those methodical steps and being quick thinkers, all of those play in really, really well with what the two is set out to do, which is, again, to bring people together, to find common ground, to analyze the situation in the bigger picture and think quickly, right? Like to be those quick thinkers, to come up with a methodical plan that will work, right? That will bring people together, that will allow people to see more than just the tunnel vision that they've allowed for themselves. Virgos, again, are very empathetic and kind with those big hearts, and two energy is very feminine energy. It's very much like very nurturing, very sensitive. Again, working well with others. There's not a whole lot of ego involved with two energy, because they're more about finding the balance, it's very relationship oriented energy. Two energy is about relationships. It's about, again, bringing people together, working together. Doesn't really like conflict, or if there is conflict, trying to find a way to alleviate the conflict. That's when twos are in their highest expression. So you can kind of see how the Virgo energy really complements the two energy to assist and be like, okay, here's an extra boost of kindness. Here's an extra boost of empathy. Here's an extra boost of being a quick thinker and a hard worker, and we can do this methodically, right? So it's really beautiful complementary energy to have Virgo, Sun, Moon, Rising, as well as being a 2 or an 11. When we look at the lower expression of Virgo, then this is where the Virgo and the 2 really, the lower expressions can really feed into each other and hinder the work and the progress of the 2, right? So lower expression of Virgo is overly critical of self and others, perfectionist, overly systematic and rigid sort of in their thinking and their actions. They can also be very pessimistic, and they can also be stubborn and overly meticulous. So if we look at the lower expression of the 2, which is also the lower expression of the 11, we've got a very timid energy, a lot of anxiety, a lot of lack of confidence, very moody, very indecisive, a worrier, right? Hypersensitive. So you can see how that overly critical of self and others, of that lower expression of Virgo energy, can feed into that energy of the 2, which is the worrier, or being very indecisive or hypersensitive. So, if you're overly critical of yourself, that's going to really tear down your confidence. And you need that confidence to be able to step into a situation, to find the common ground for it, to assist the people that you're meant to assist, right? So, and being overly systematic and rigid in your thinking, right? Like 2s have to see the bigger picture. They almost have to be the observer, so that they can see what's going on all sides, to find the common ground, to find that middle space. And so if they are too rigid in their thinking, or, too hyper-focused on one extreme or one polarity, they're going to miss the bigger picture. They're not going to be able to effectively do their work, right? They're not going to be able to step into that 2 energy and effectively do their work. So same thing with the 11s. If you fall into that lower expression of Virgo and you're overly systematic and rigid, then you're basically killing the creativity that is meant to spark the inspiration that you're meant to use to inspire others through your work, right? So it's kind of like, again, being overly critical of yourself, or being too rigid, or too, again, being too rigid or overly critical, it can cause you to be, because again, it can be of other people. So maybe you begin to judge other people for their decisions, their actions, whatever. And again, you're killing the creativity, you're killing the inspiration, you're killing the peacemaker energy that you're meant to be as a 2 or an 11, right? And so, and then you begin to fall into your negative traits of the 2, which again are like a worrier, overly cynical, indecisive, lack of confidence, all of those things, which basically end up just putting a big roadblock in front of you to either work through or to stagnate, right? So the lower expressions of the signs are not bad. They allow us to learn things about ourselves, to learn things about others, to learn more about what it is that we came here to accomplish in this lifetime. And we'll face the challenges we need to face to be able to overcome those, right? And to elevate to a higher expression. And then we acquire the wisdom and the tools that we need so that if it happens in the future, we're able to, come back to a higher elevation. But just to be aware of, if you find yourself being overly critical of yourself and you're a Virgo, you can be like, okay, I feel like I might be in my shadow right now. Why am I being so critical of myself? Or if you're like falling into that perfectionist mode, which really plagues Virgos, again, and that can detract from the energy that you're meant to put into other things, right? Because nothing in life is perfect. It's just not. And so it's no sense spending a lot of time to make it so. It's just not going to happen. So again, you can just kind of see like, oh, or if you're, in your negative 2 traits and you're just constantly worrying about things you can't control, then you're taking away from that energy that you could use towards something better, towards something good, towards something you can control, right? Something that you can contribute towards. So it's just a matter of being aware of where it is that you might be in your lower expression and how to, again, elevate higher, and to understand like how those Virgo energies, why you chose Virgo as Sun, Moon, Rising when you're a life path 11 or 2, right? To assist you and how they kind of really complement each other. So I hope that this was helpful. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you again soon. Libra. If you are Libra, Sun, Moon, or Rising, and you're also a life path 2 or a master number 11, then this reading is for you. 11s, I'm going to mostly refer to you as life path 2 because ultimately that is your life path number. 11 is an extension of that energy. So if there's something that the 11s need to know specific to them, then I will insert that as needed. So Libra, let's take a look at the higher expressions of Libra and the lower expressions of Libra, and then we'll take a look at the higher expressions of the 2 and the lower expressions of the 2 to see how they sort of complement each other or work against one another, and what you're meant to kind of take away from that. So Libra is an air energy, and in its highest expression, Libra is the diplomat. They are the peacemaker. They're very fair. They're very idealistic. They're very social and friendly and intelligent. They like to find solutions to problems, and they often do so with ease. They can be very forgiving in nature. They're very trustworthy, and they're very tactful, right? They're going to read the room and see how they need to present the information so that it's well received. What's interesting, if you look at the 2 and the higher expressions of the 2, they are very, very similar. I would have thought that 2 energy would have been more Libra in nature, but actually 2 energy is more Cancerian in nature. It's considered a water element. But the traits, the positive traits of a 2 are so similar to Libra that, it's almost like, again, you're just compounding those energies to make it even that much more potent. So 2 traits that are positive are, not 2 traits, but traits of the 2 that are positive are the ability to work well with others, a very Libran trait. They're very sensitive, they're team players, they're very balanced, they're very cooperative, they're very kind, tactful, and can be a very good diplomat. They are the peacemakers, the mediators. They're very sincere in their words and their actions, and they're very intuitive and psychic. So again, if you look at the 2, the positives of the Libra, Sun, Moon, Rising, and the positives of the 2, they're so similar that they just compound the energy to where it's like, lifting you up, right? So it's kind of like if you chose to come here as a Libra sun, moon, rising, and also a 2 or an 11, you are doing yourself a favor because you were giving yourself all that added energy to be able to even more fully step into your 2 energies, to be able to just naturally have that air about you where it's like you're just naturally a peacemaker, you're just naturally fair and idealistic. It's just a part of like your soul, basically. Some of the only differences that I really see with the Libran energy and the 2 energy is that Libra energy is a little bit more social, right? They're more outgoing, maybe a little more extroverted, where 2 energy likes to really be behind the scenes. They're more introverted, but you could still be introverted and, your experiences with people are just very friendly and balanced, right? And so it doesn't necessarily mean that if you are an introverted Libra or an introverted 2 or an extroverted 2, that you're not stepping into your energies, because it's just, they all just sort of complement each other very, very well. And I like that with the Libra energy, you have that sort of desire or innate need to sort of find solutions to problems that don't exist, and doing that with ease, because again, such a core aspect of the 2 energy is to be the observer, take in the bigger picture, see what's not working. Usually when it comes to relationships, 2 energy is very much about relationships, and so is Libra, which is interesting. So, but it's about taking in the situation, taking in the surroundings, taking in the environment, and seeing like what's not working when it comes to relationships, when it comes to interactions, and finding a way to help people to come together, right? So if you're an 11, 2, or 2, and you are not assisting people in coming together, you're not looking for solutions that bring people together, but rather you are fueling a fire that divides people, that creates chaos, then you're not stepping into your 2 energy or your Libran energy. And so you're probably in one of your shadow sides, which is something we all do, right? We all fall into those, and that's fine. But just so that you know, it's like that's such a core aspect of 2 energy and Libra energy. So that's what I'm saying. If you're like Libra, sun, moon, rising, and also a 2, you came here to, mend some bridges for some people, right? Like maybe you would make a great counselor, a great therapist. People probably just open up completely naturally to you. It's probably like they meet you on the street and you hear their whole life story type thing. If you're that type of person, and you've got Libra and a 2, then like you're meant to be doing something in purpose that is helping to bring people together, right? Or it's kind of like if you're like, say, a journalist, instead of feeding into I wouldn't even call it journalism, what we have on the airwaves these days, you would be more prone to spreading real truth, not taking extremist sides, just spreading the true facts, right? Like the things that will help to share knowledge with people so that you can, and facts and wisdom with people so that they can find a common ground, right? You're not interested in pushing people to an extreme based on certain ideologies or certain beliefs or whatever. You're interested in bringing people together so that we can work cohesively together as, a collective consciousness. So it's really beautiful energy, and Libra energy really assists you in that and stepping into that, which is really beautiful. So the lower expressions of Libra are, again, very similar to the negative expressions of the 2, which is moody, dishonesty, indecisiveness, neediness, being egotistical, self-indulgent, untrustworthy, detached and unemotional, vain and selfish. And so if you look at the lower expressions of the 2, you've got timid, anxious, lack of confidence, moody, indecisiveness, depression, a worrier, hypersensitive, oftentimes cynical. And so if you've got those lower expressions of the Libra feeding into the lower expressions of the 2, you can see again where it just compounds. It compounds the energy, and it would just basically screech you to a halt of any progress. And if anything, you would fall into that dynamic of fueling the fire of chaos, fueling the fire of conflict, dividing people as opposed to bringing them together, right? Like, again, falling more into your lower self, your lower ego, being dishonest, which is just not, that just goes so against two energy of when you're in your highest expression. Two energy is very sincere and very honest in their approach and what they have to say and that sort of thing. So if you're somebody who's, dishonest, then you can pretty much guarantee that you are not stepping into your two energy at this time. Indecisiveness, that's something that really plagues 2s and 11s. That indecisiveness is not trusting yourself, not trusting the universe, not trusting the people around you. And so you really, throughout your journey, have to learn to trust more and to be more decisive, because when you're indecisive, you are opening yourself up to influence by others, right? And so that influence can throw you into an extreme. If you're easily influenced, you can easily be thrown into an extreme, which 2 energy is all about coming together, not being in an extreme, but being in balance. And so, you can kind of just think about that, and if you can kind of take a look at where you're at in your journey. If you are in an extreme in any area within your life, that's okay, right? But you're not within your 2 energy. You've fallen into your shadow of your 2. And so it's just a matter of figuring out, what does balance mean for you? What does that look like? And how are you showing up, right? And then you can figure out whether you're in your lower expression. And if you are, what do you need to do to elevate yourself, get to a higher elevation? Because when 2s and Libras are in their highest expression, they are some of the most beautiful souls to work with. They are the ones who want to see peace and harmony on earth. They're the ones who can make it happen. They're the idealists. They're the ones who see the world through rose-colored glasses, but they have the wherewithal to be able to make it actually happen, right? To figure out a way that can actually make a difference. And when you throw in the 11 with that energy, then you definitely have what it takes to make the world a better place, right? Not to sound Pollyanna, but you really do. You really have what it takes to be able to do that. And that's really beautiful energy to work with. So again, if you are not on course to bring people together, to assist humanity in some way, whether it's behind the scenes or in front of the scenes, right? Where if you're not on route to do that, then you might be in a lower expression and you just need to adjust as needed, right? But so Libra energy is very complementary. It just reinforces the energies that are already present in the 2 life path number. It's just that where you need to be really careful is when you fall into those lower expressions, because that can sort of undo a lot of things and just throw a wrench in all of the work that you've done and just create chaos. Not that you can't come out of it, not that that's not normal. It's completely normal to fall into a lower expression. We do it throughout our lives. But you learn to find the tools that will best assist you in moving into something higher. So I hope that this was helpful for all the Libras out there who are also a life path 2 or 11. Beautiful energies to work with. You chose very well in this lifetime. So I hope that was helpful. Take care, everyone. Bye. Scorpios. So if you are a Scorpio sun, moon, rising, and you are also a life path 2 or a master life path 11-2, then this reading is for you. So 11s, I am going to refer to you as 2s for this reading, because ultimately that is your life path number. 11 is an extension of that energy. If there's something that you need to know that's very specific for 11s, I will insert that as needed. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the Scorpio energy. I want to look at the highest expressions of Scorpio, the lower expressions of Scorpio, as well as the higher and lower expressions of the 2, so that you can see sort of the interplay of the energies, how they work together, how they sort of maybe push and pull against each other, so that when they surface in your life, you can work with them. So Scorpio energy is, of course, a water sign. Scorpio in its highest expression is very ambitious. It's very determined. There's a level of bravery with Scorpio energy, very courageous. They are usually very loyal. They are usually very honest. They can be very protective. They are very often very intuitive and psychic. They can be very independent thinkers, so not really fall into the crowd. They usually are able to observe a situation and make up their own mind about the situation. They are often very assertive. They can be have emotional depth, even if they don't show it, right? They can be very deep individuals, even if you can't, even if they have their poker face on. There's usually a lot going on under the surface. And they're very deeply sensitive and passionate about the things that spark their interest or that they love. And so those are some of the higher expressions of Scorpio. When we look at the higher expressions of the 2, you can see how some of that energy really assists the 2 and the 11 in stepping into their life path. So 2 energy is also a water element. It's more Cancerian in nature, but it's a water element. It's more introverted in nature as well. Scorpio can kind of be introverted and extroverted, right? It depends on the mood, I think. But some of the positive traits of 2 energy is this ability to really work well with others. This sensitivity, a deep sensitivity. So you can see where the Scorpio energy really compounds with the 2 energy to bring in that sensitivity and that depth. 2s are usually very good team players. They're usually very balanced within their energy and within their approach. They can be very cooperative, very kind, very tactful, and there's a sense of diplomacy around them. They can be the peacemakers, the mediators. They are usually very sincere and honest in their approach and in their words. And they are also considered very intuitive and psychic. So again, when you couple that water with water, you're getting, more water. You're getting like even more depth, even more intuitiveness, even more psychic capabilities. So it's like if you have Scorpio energy and you are a 2 or an 11, you can most definitely guarantee that when you're in your highest expression, you're going to tap into some psychic gifts. You're going to tap into that intuitive nature. It's just such a big part of who you are. Which is a good thing because you really need that sensitivity and that intuitive nature to be able to do the work of the 2, which is to be that peacemaker, to work with individuals, to see the bigger picture, to really feel, to read the room, right? To be able to read the energy within the room, to be able to see what you're working with, to be able to see what that person is bringing to the table, so that you know what you need to bring to the table. So there's a lot that kind of goes on behind the scenes with 2 energy, with 2 work. When it comes to working with energy. And to be able to be those peacekeepers, to be able to figure out solutions when there's divisiveness, how to bring people together, how to make something work that wasn't working, how to mend those bridges. And so again, that scorpionic energy really assists the 2 in stepping into their life path energy. Let's see, what else do I want to, the independent thinker. I love that because that's something, again, that's kind of like 2s have to think independently because if you are overly influenced by outside forces, you yourself can fall into extremes, right? So it's like being an independent thinker, a balanced independent thinker, you will look at both sides of the situation and find the common ground, find the middle area so that you can work with that energy to assist others in coming together as opposed to continuing to push people to extremes, right? So that independent thinking is very, very positive when it's working with the 2 energy because it assists you in, again, being able to be the observer and think for yourself without being overly influenced by outside sources, right? Which ultimately helps you in your work. Also, that loyalty and that honesty really assists the 2 as well because, again, 2s in their highest expression are very sincere. People feel very comfortable and emotionally comfortable and vulnerable with 2s because they feel like they can trust them. They feel like they can open up to them. They feel very emotionally safe with them. And it's because they're so sincere. You're like what you see is what you get for the most part. There's probably a lot happening under the surface as well, but when they're working with you, it's very sincere. Their intention is to assist and to make the situation better for all involved through working together, right? Because again, twos work so well with other people. There's very collaborative energy. And you can see where that Scorpio energy really assists and in kind of boosting the morale or boosting the confidence of the two to be able to get them to sort of branch out and to share their work, to share their gifts. And again, that ambitious energy of the Scorpio and the determination of the Scorpio would also be very beneficial for not only the two, but also for the 11, because the 11 is meant to, even though they may be more introverted by nature as the person, right? Like the person might be more introverted. The work is meant to be extroverted when it comes to 11 energy. It's meant to be out there. It's meant to, use your own inspirations to inspire others, to find their voice, to use their voice, to, create whatever. And so that real ambitious and determined energy of the Scorpio can really assist the 11 in stepping into that power, stepping into those gifts, and not having that lack of confidence, not having that self-doubt, or if they do have it, to be able to work through it, right? So really beautiful energy, the Scorpio energy with the 2 energy. It definitely complements one another. It definitely, like I said, it sort of compounds the energy to where it's like you have like this tidal wave behind you in a really positive way. So it's beautiful, beautiful energy when both are in their highest expressions, right? When you're in your higher expression of your Scorpio energy and you're in your higher expression of your 2 energy or your 11 energy, you're unstoppable. That's just really beautiful energy. You're like gangbusters. Let's do this, right? You're out there to bring peace to the world, to help people, to give them the tools that they need to live more harmoniously, which is really beautiful. However, when we look at the lower expressions of Scorpio, Sun, Moon, Rising, or and the lower expressions of the 2, we can immediately see how things can go sideways pretty quickly. So the lower expressions of Scorpio is that they can be very stubborn, they can be very manipulative, they can be intolerant, they can be jealous, resentful, aggressive, vengeful, possessiveness, right? They can be possessive. They can have a lack of trust in others. They can have a lack of vulnerability. They can be moody and hypersensitive. So you think about all of that, right? Those lower expressions of Scorpio and the higher expressions of the 2, which is all about people coming together, being open-minded, being very, allowing people to have their beliefs and their ideas and to, help them to facilitate those ideas and whatnot without judgment. Being very tolerant, right? 2 energy is all about relationships. It's all about coming together. It's all about tolerance. It's all about compassion. Lower expression of Scorpio with that intolerance, with that jealousy, that manipulation, the stubbornness, right? The resentfulness, the vengefulness, all of that stuff is very dark energy. It's very, very lower vibrational energy. It's very egoic, right? And so it's kind of like, you can see how that would hinder the higher expression of the 2. So it's like if you're in your lower expression of Scorpio, you can't possibly step into your higher expression of 2. You have to work through that scorpionic energy to get to a place where, you have to work through the lower self. You have to work through the lower, the ego being in control, and find ways to give the ego a job that isn't sort of dismantling your work, right? Dismantling your progress. And what's interesting is some of the lower, where you see like this, the lower expressions of Scorpio are very aggressive, very like dark, very like, just very dark, right? It's why, they call it the stinger. But if you look at the lower expressions of the 2, it's very like wounded feminine energy. Whereas I would even say Scorpio energy is like very wounded masculine energy. But the 2 energy is very wounded feminine. So it's very timid, very anxious, very lacking in confidence, very moody, very depressive, indecisive, worrier, very hypersensitive, and becomes very, very withdrawn. And so you've got this very aggressive energy of the Scorpio lower expression, and then this very timid, I'm not good enough, nobody likes me, everything's falling apart, the world sucks, whatever, negative traits of the 2 And that's where the push and the pull comes in, right? That's where it's like you can almost feel like there's two sides of yourself and they're in constant turmoil. So you don't really know which way to go type thing. And so you can see they're kind of both influencing one another. It's definitely almost like divine feminine, divine masculine, wounded divine feminine, divine masculine energies coming to a head, and you trying to figure out which one to work with. And it can be very challenging. I can see how that energy would be very, very challenging because it's happening from within. So it's like this tornado of energy from within. So again, that is where you will face your challenges. So the challenges surface when we are in our lower expressions to help us to move beyond them, to gain greater insight, to learn something, to pull the wisdom from those experiences so that when that happens in the future, we're able to come out of it much more quickly and much more prepared to deal with similar situations in the future. And not only that, handling it with ourselves, but with it being two energy, you will be able to recognize that within other people, if you're working with them, right? To be able to assist them, to be able to come, overcome their own hurdles, especially if they're very similar to kind of what you're working with. So ultimately, those lower expressions are a good thing. They do assist us, but you can see how it could be very challenging for an 11-2, a 2, and a Scorpio sun, moon, or rising to be in those lower expressions of themselves, and trying to figure out what they're supposed to do, where they're supposed to go, how they're supposed to act, how they're supposed to feel, all those things, because that lower self is coming up through them. I will say for the 11s, one of the things, you usually see master level energy step into that master level energy later in life, because the first part of their life is working through that lower self, working through the ego. And what's interesting is like a lot of that ego energy of the 11 that they're meant to work through is very similar to the scorpionic energy of like being stubborn, being manipulative, being intolerant, being jealous, being resentful, aggressive, vengeful, possessive, lack of trust in others and lacking trust of themselves, lack of vulnerability, being moody and hypersensitive. And so you spend a good portion of your life kind of working through that lower expression of yourself, which isn't a bad part of yourself. It's just part of the experience you came here to have. And so you work through those lower expressions to figure out how to find the higher part of yourself, the elevated side of yourself. And then once you're able to do that and work through that, it may surface again, but you have the tools to be able to work with it, right? And then it's like once you work through those lower expressions of yourself, then you're able to more confidently and more fluidly step into that 11 energy. And that's why you usually don't see 11s, 22s, or 33s step into that master level energy until later in life. Typically, you'll see the challenges of the 11 come in pretty quickly, or early in life, because you're meant to work through those lower shadows of yourself. And figure out ways to overcome them and incorporate them in a way or transmute them in a way that works for you. So anyway, so just keep that in mind. There's nothing bad about the lower expressions of ourselves. They are there to assist us to become the best that we can be type thing, and to really step fully into these energies. So they're all good. But you can see how the higher expression of Scorpio and the higher expression of the 2 really work beautifully together. But those lower expressions can feel like a thunderstorm, a tornado, a hurricane, right? Like happening within you, churning within you. And it's in figuring out how to work with those energies that will, build you up and make you into the person that you came here to be. So powerful energy. Anytime we work with Scorpio energy, it's pretty powerful. But yeah, I think it complements the 2 energy well, the 11 energy well. It's just when we get into those lower expressions that can be a bit challenging for you all, but nothing you can't handle and nothing you can't work through. And when you come out the other side of that, man, you're going to be prepared to go through pretty much anything, right? So I hope that this was helpful. Thank you all so much for listening, and I will see you all again soon. Sagittarius, if you are a Sagittarius sun, moon, rising, and you're also a life path 2 or a master level 11-2, then this is for you. So we're going to take a look at the higher expressions and the lower expressions of both the Sag energy and the 2 energy. 11s, I'm going to refer to you as 2s in this reading. Ultimately, you are a life path 2. The 11 is an extension of that energy. If there's something that you need to know that's specific to the 11, I will refer to that. Okay, so Sagittarius energy is a fire element, right? In their highest expression, Sagittarius are the freedom lovers. They're very optimistic, they're honest, they're intelligent, they have a good sense of humor. They're fair-minded, they're very spontaneous and fun. They're very adaptable to change. They can be very enthusiastic and generous, and they can also be very playful, which is really beautiful energy. If we look at the energy of the 2s are considered to be more introverted. They are more of a water element and correlate more with the Cancerian energy. But if we look at the positive traits of the 2, we see that they have this beautiful energy of the ability to work well with others. They are very sensitive in nature. They're team workers. They're usually very balanced in their approach. They are very cooperative. They're very kind. They're very tactful, and they can be the diplomats, right? They are typically peacemakers and mediators, and they make great counselors or therapists. People usually open up to them very quickly and feel very vulnerable with them in a good way. 2s are usually very sincere in their actions and in their words, and they're also very intuitive and psychic in their abilities. So when we look at the higher expression of Sagittarius, which is that fire energy, and then we look at the higher expressions of the 2, which is the water energy, we can see that they actually feed pretty well off of each other. So we have the Sag energy, which again is those freedom lovers. They're more in the community. They like they don't really like to be secluded, right? They're good with people, right? They work well with people. They're intelligent. They like to problem solve. They have a good sense of humor. They're very fair-minded. And again, these are all things that really can assist the 2 energy in its work, right? So it's kind of like if you have that Sagittarius fire within you, it's helping you to step into that 2 energy of being the peacemaker, of being very sincere in your words and your actions, in cooperation and working well with others, that sort of thing. Now, where 2 might be a little bit more introverted, and might like to be behind the scenes, if you couple that with that Sagittarius energy, which is a little bit more outgoing, I think, then you have a 2 who's really good with people, who's also got a great sense of humor, and who's also very fair-minded, which you need to be when you're a 2, and who's also very optimistic, right? Which again, you need to be as a 2, and all these things that kind of open you up a little bit and maybe bring you outside of your comfort zone. So it's really kind of like your soul was probably like, okay, I want to come as a 2, but I mean, that's more introverted energy, but I want to do bigger things with a bigger population. And maybe, on the in the public eye, maybe a little bit, and so you set yourself up to have this Sagittarius energy, sun, moon, rising, so that you would have those innate traits, right? So that you could have that innate sort of optimism, that spontaneity, that sort of fun, childlike side of yourself, because that's what people get drawn to. And as a 2, again, 2 energy is all about like relationships, balance, bringing things together, harmonizing things, right? Like finding the harmony within the chaos. And so if you can have that energy also backed by the Sagittarius energy, that lights the fire within you and that like kind of pushes you outside of your comfort zone and pushes you into sort of the public sphere, people are going to be even more drawn to you, and you would have even more of an opportunity to sort of amass sort of a following that you can help and you can assist. This is actually just beautiful, beautiful energy also if you are an 11, because 11s, even if the person is more introverted, your work is meant to be extroverted. People are supposed to see the work. They're supposed to be inspired by it. You are supposed to be inspired, and your inspiration and creation is supposed to inspire others, right? Just by being who you are, just by doing what you do. And that Sag energy can really help to ignite that, to really push you outside of your comfort zone, to push you to be creative, to really ignite the creativity within you. A lot of Sages that I know are very creative, and also that sort of fair-mindedness and spontaneity, right? So it's kind of like, again, it just pushes you outside of your comfort zone. It pushes you to where it's like, so that you have the drive to step into that 11 energy, as opposed to staying comfortable in the 2 energy if you're an 11, okay? And with Sagittarius being so adaptable to change, that's another great quality, because again, you've got all these things where it's like, as a 2, you could be faced with things that can be a little bit challenging when you are meant to be the person who is assisting in bringing the world together, right? Or the people together, relationships together. Again, you would make great relationship therapists, or just therapists in general, counselors, whatever, because people feel so comfortable with you. But yeah, so you have to be adaptable for change and sort of keep that optimism as you're looking at the world and the state that it's in, and trying to figure out how you can assist in bringing things together, right? Like, you don't have to do it all yourself, but you came here as a 2 to be able to figure that out, to like help, whether it's your family, your community, the greater world at large, right? Like, to be able to assist people in coming together, to mending those bridges that have been burnt down or broken or whatever the case may be. And so it's really good to have that Sag energy of that adaptability for change, that fair-mindedness, that honesty, that optimism. They really complement each other. When we look at the negative traits of Sagittarius, coupled with the negative traits of the 2, you can kind of see how they kind of, that fire, could be put out by the water, or that fire could dry up the water, right? Like, they can really go against each other in a lot of ways, or really halt your progress. So the lower expressions of Sagittarius are very much like impatience, blunt without a filter. So they'll tell you how it is, no matter how undiplomatic it is. And, sometimes it's not a bad thing to hear things the way they are, right? Like, and then, there's no guessing. But with 2 energy, you really need to be diplomatic in reading the room and understanding like how you can say things so that they will be well received, right? Because with that lower expression of Sag energy, it's like you can just blurt things out and they're not well received, and then they're not going to be integrated. You see what I'm saying? So that's where the diplomacy really comes into play. And 2s are naturally very good at that. So if you have this Sag energy with a lower expression that's like, that sort of bluntness without a filter, that can kind of get you into trouble when you're trying to do your work as your life path too. You see what I'm saying? So it's kind of like this push-pull energy a little bit. Sag energy, they can promise more when they're in their lower expression. They can make promises to do more than they can actually deliver on, right? And that creates stress and anxiety and sort of alienation and lack of trust. So for everybody involved, basically, right? And if you're a 2, that's an issue, because people are naturally drawn to you because they feel like they can trust you, just because of the air that you give off, right? Just because of your natural essence. But if you're struggling with that lower expression of Sag, and you start to make promises that you can't keep, right? Then you start to lose the trust of the people that you're meant to serve, and then you're meant to assist. And so you can see how that can start to create issues, and you would have to be very mindful of that and start to figure out ways to sort of work with that lower energy so that you can move to a higher elevation. Sag energy and its lower expression can be very inconsistent. So again, it goes back to like making promises, they can't keep because they get bored easily. It's like something has to like keep their attention, or they're on to the next thing. And again, that can be an issue with 2 energy, because you really need that sincerity, you need that sort of dedication, that sensitivity towards whatever it is that you're working on, whatever relationship is at play. And this can just be in your everyday life as well. So if you're inconsistent, then again, you start to lose trust from the people around you. And they can sometimes be emotionally distant, the lower aspect of Sag, with reckless behavior. So again, you can see how that would work against the energy of the 2, because 2 energy is very sensitive and very emotive energy. It's water energy. It's very sensitive and deep within its emotions, right? It's like very empathetic. And so if you are emotionally distant as a 2, again, you can see how that would obviously hinder your work or how you show up in purpose, right? So it's just a matter of getting in touch with your emotions if that's something that you're struggling with at this time, if you're in your lower expression of Sagittarius. And the reckless behavior, again, that just leads to, people losing trust in you. And again, as a 2, you are meant to bring people together in some way, whether that's behind the scenes doing computer work or that's actually face to face with people. It's all about the relationships and bringing people together. And so through your work, through your purpose, through how you show up and present yourself to the world. And so if you're presenting yourself into the world in a way that is emotionally distant or, reckless in some way, then people are going to have a hard time trusting that, or you're going to have a hard time gaining trust in that arena. The negative aspects of the 2, just again, kind of like would just, sort of compound the lower expressions of the Sagittarius. So the negative traits of the 2 and the 11 are being very timid, being very anxious, lack of confidence, moody, depression, or falling into more of a depressive state because of your circumstances, right? Not talking about like a chemical imbalance, but an actual like circumstantial depression, right? Something that you can kind of move yourself out of when you change your circumstances. Indecisiveness, a worrier, hypersensitive. And so really, it's really that sort of wounded feminine energy that comes through as the negative traits of the 2, or the lower expression. And so, yeah, it's just kind of like, you can kind of alienate yourself in your own way when you're in your lower expression of 2 because you become so withdrawn. So, you could, when we fall into our lower expressions, whether it's through our zodiac sign or our numerology, we, one of those roadmaps, right? Like we are meant to face some kind of a challenge, some kind of circumstance that will teach us something, that will show us why this is a hindrance, why, we can't possibly continue along this way. And then the suffering gets so great that we look for the ways to get out of it, right? And so then we find the tools and the resources, and we pull the wisdom from the experience so that in the future, when we fall into those lower expressions, we're able to move a little bit more quickly out of them into a higher elevation, into those more positive traits of the 2 and the Sag in this situation. So they're not bad things to be in the lower expressions. It's not bad. It's definitely part of the experience we came here to have. But being aware of the situation, right? Being aware of those lower expressions, you can see how they hinder you, how they can work against you. And so you can take the time needed to overcome those challenges, as opposed to falling into victim mode and being like, woe is me, everything is falling apart and there's nothing I can do about it. That's not the case. It just takes some work and some adjustment and some time to figure out for you, how do you get back into balance? How do you move back into those higher expressions of your energy? But it's good to kind of know like what they are and what they look like so that you can be aware of them, right? Like if you become like a big worrier, you're worried about the past, present, future, you are becoming very indecisive, you're hypersensitive, then you're kind of falling into, or you're really lacking confidence, and you're falling into those negative traits of the 2. And again, it's not a bad thing, but you're meant to feel confident in your work and your expressions as you're working with other people to assist them in coming together, right? In finding their balance and finding your own balance. And so again, you just would be aware of it and then figure out a way to overcome it. So I hope that this was helpful for you all. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you all again soon. Capricorns, if you are a Capricorn sun, moon, rising, and you are also a life path number 2 or an 11-2, then this reading is for you. 11s, I will be referring to you all as 2s, since ultimately that is your life path number. If there's something that I need to reference associated with the 11 specifically, then I will bring that in as needed. Okay, so what I would like to do is take a look at the higher expressions and the lower expressions of both the Capricorn energy and the 2 energy, so that you can kind of see what you're working with, right? Like what you signed up for and how these energies work well together and how they might create some challenges for you so that you can be aware of that. Okay, so Capricorn is, of course, an earth energy. In its highest expression, we see Capricorn as ambitious, persistent, practical, disciplined, highly sensitive, responsible, self-disciplined, patient, organized, very wise, reliable, creative, and loyal. Okay, so a very ambitious energy, very determined, very dedicated, very driven. When we look at the two energies, two is a water element. Okay, it's more associated with Cancer energy, which is interesting because Cancer is on the opposite axis of Capricorn on the zodiac wheel, so it's kind of like the polarity to Capricorn. But anyway, so two energy is more associated with Cancer energy. It is a water element, and it's more introverted, where Capricorn may also be introverted, but it's so ambitious that it's probably a little bit more extroverted, I would think. When we look at the positive traits of the two, we can see more of the sort of more feminine energies. We've got ability to work well with others. Two energy is really about relationships and coming together. And so twos are can be very sensitive when they're in their positive traits, very empathetic. They can be great team players. They can be very balanced and cooperative and very kind and tactful. They are the peacemakers, the mediators. They make great therapists because people are so drawn to them and open up to them so readily and easily. Two energy is very sincere. It's very sincere in its actions and in its words. It's like you can trust what they say. You can trust that they're going to do what they say, right? They're very sincere in their actions. And two energy is very intuitive, very psychic, and again, that very feminine sort of essence. So if we look at the two, it's interesting because I really get the feeling more of like masculine energy with Capricorn energy. So it's like ambitious, persistent, practical, very disciplined, very responsible, reliable. It's very much in the action-oriented energy. And so it's, to me, that signifies more of a male, not male, but masculine energy. It doesn't have anything to do with gender. So you can kind of see how it's like that Capricorn energy, if you're sun, moon, or rising, really works to help like elevate and lift the two energy and to kind of put it out into the world type thing, right? Because two energy is more sort of, like I said, it's sort of more introverted, likes to sort of be behind the scenes and do its work behind the scenes. It's kind of like, you might have this person who's a two who does all this work and you only see their work. You don't ever really see the face behind the work type thing, but the work makes an impact, makes a tremendous impact, and is very beneficial in so many ways. So that's more like two energy. And that doesn't mean that can't be Capricorn energy, because it very much can be. You just now have that added ambition and drive and practicality that kind of drives this two energy to get the work done, to do it, to have that confidence and have that dedication. So it's actually really beneficial. That's what I mean when I say it kind of like lifts up and encourages or motivates the two energy. So it's kind of like if you have a two life path, or you have master level 11 energy, and you also have Capricorn sun, moon, rising, then I would say that your soul came here because there's something your soul wants to accomplish in the physical world, in the practical world, like where it's like something tangible. So for 11s, I would say, very much so, because as an 11, your work is meant to be seen by the world. It's meant to be experienced by the world. It's meant to inspire the world, right? Or the greater community. And the Capricorn energy will assist you in doing that, as opposed to like staying in your comfort zone and sort of being more in that Cancerian energy of like safety or, more introverted, right? The Capricorn energy is going to fuel the fire to get you out there, you're going to have like this burning desire inside, this ambition that you don't really know where it's coming from, but it's like, you have a bigger purpose, and that Capricornian energy is going to assist you in completing that purpose, right? Stepping into that purpose, whether you're an 11 or a 2. But especially for 11s, because it can be a little intimidating if you want to be behind the scenes and your work is meant to be out there. You have that feeling on a soul level that you're meant for something bigger, that something bigger is meant to occur because of you. And that Capricorn energy will assist you in achieving that, right? I mean, you still have free will and all that stuff, but you're going to feel it from within because these are your energies. Capricorn sun, moon, rising means that this is energy within you, right? That you signed up for to just have innately. Same thing with the 2 energy. You have these very cooperative, kind, tactful, peacemaker energies within you. And if you're not living by that, if you're not showing up in purpose in that way, you're going to feel the incongruence. You're going to feel the discord. And you're going to feel compelled to make it right, right? And so that Capricornian energy will be assisting you along the way, which is really, really powerful and beautiful. And I love that. And you think about like Capricorn being earth energy and 2 energy being water energy. It's like you think about the earth, it's all earth and water, right? Like that's what it's, and air as well and all that stuff and fire. But it's kind of like that's the thing that you mainly see is like the earth and the water. And so they work really well together. And so you just can kind of think about that. It's like if you have a lot of Capricorn energy and you're a 2, even though they seem like they might be opposites, they actually assist each other really, really well. And then when we look at the lower expressions, this is kind of where you can see you can see how you could get caught up and you could kind of get like halted in your progress. The lower expressions of Capricorn are that of being very cynical, selfish, unforgiving, a perfectionist, egotistical. They're sometimes loners, right? They don't like to interact with people because they're cynical about people or cynical about the world or whatever. They can be overly cautious, which can be a big red flag when it comes to especially 11 energy. They can be pessimistic and melancholy and rarely satisfied. Like there's never enough. They're never satisfied with their achievements. There's always got to be something bigger, better to achieve. And that can lead to burnout, obviously, and all kinds of issues and workaholism and all that stuff. And if we look at the lower expressions of the 2, we have sort of that timid energy, very anxious, lack of confidence, moody, depression, and that's more situational depression, like depression because of your circumstances, right? Not like a chemical imbalance. Indecisiveness, being a worrier, being hypersensitive. And so again, if you couple those lower expressions, if you're in your lower expression of Capricorn and you're in your lower expression of your 2 or your 11, then you're going to have a situation where you're very withdrawn, cynical, unforgiving, kind of, a pessimist, overly cautious. So you're not going to take risks. You're going to be very withdrawn and kind of a loner. You're going to be stuck in your ego and think that your way is the right way and there's no other way to do it, which as a 2 is an issue because 2s are supposed to see the bigger picture. 2s are supposed to see, the issues that are out there and the solutions to help mend those issues, to help bring people and relationships together, not to fuel the fire through being cynical, to cause more divisiveness, right? And so you can see how it's like if you fall into that lower expression of either, how that's going to hinder you, how that's going to keep you from stepping into your bigger purpose, into the life path that you came here to achieve, which is either your 2 or your 2 and 11. So, and then being overly cautious, that could really affect you as an 11 because, as an 11, you have to kind of put yourself out there. You have to put your work out there. And it's very possible that people are not going to have the same beliefs or same ideas or same processes that you have to accomplish something. And if you are, overly cautious or overly cynical or, judgmental or whatever, or unforgiving, right, then it's just going to cause a lot of turmoil in your relationships. And again, being a 2, you stepped into this lifetime to have it be all about relationships, whether it's relationships with self, with others, or helping others with their relationships on a small or a grander scale. So if you're falling into those lower expressions, it's not a bad thing. We do it all the time, but you just need to be aware of it so that you can recognize why you're not moving forward, why it is that you're feel stuck or you keep hitting the same obstacles or the same challenges. Those obstacles, those challenges are meant to show you the adjustments that need to be made so that you can move to a higher elevation, so that you can move beyond those lower traits. We're always going to have those lower traits. They're a part of us. And, it's part of working through that lower expression. And so we're always going to be, teetering the line, right? Coming in and out of those lower expressions. But the more that we have those challenges, the more that we face those kind of inconveniences and those uncomfortable situations, the more that we acquire the tools and the resources and the wisdom to be able to move out of them more quickly and find our center and move back to that center much more quickly and efficiently, right? So they're not bad, but they are there to show us something and to help us to see like how uncomfortable we feel when we're in our lower expressions. When we're in our higher expression of both our zodiac sign and our numerology, in those energies, we feel better. We feel like we're in purpose. We feel like things are working. We feel like things are falling into place. Not to say that we might not still face challenging situations, but we feel aligned within, right? So if you find that you are in those lower expressions of Capricorn or of your 2 or 11, it's not going to feel good. It's just going to feel like you're out of balance, like you're constantly struggling. And so you're just being asked to take a closer look at those challenges that surface for you and figure out the best way to move beyond them. But now you kind of have an awareness of what those higher and lower expressions are. And so you can kind of put a place to the name, right? Or a name to the experience, I guess. So I hope that this was helpful, and I will see you all again soon. Thanks so much. Aquarius, if you are Aquarius, sun, moon, or rising, and you are also a life path number 2 or a life path 11-2, then this reading is for you. 11s, I will be referring to you as 2s because ultimately that is your life path number. If there's something that I need to address for you specifically for 11s, then I will insert that as needed. Okay, so let's take a look at the higher and the lower expressions of Aquarius, and we'll also do the same thing for the 2s and see how they sort of complement each other or how they kind of work against each other, what kind of challenges you might face because of these energies. And so you can be more aware of the energies that you signed up for and how you can figure out how to best work with them. So Aquarius is, of course, an air sign. And we often see in the higher expression of Aquarius this adaptability for change, like incredible adaptability for change. They're very adaptable. More sort of esoteric energy, more specialized energy, usually around things that are outside of the norm, outside of the box, the outside looking in type thing. They are very smart. They're very creative. They're very friendly, independent. They can be very free-spirited and don't like to be tied down. And they're also considered to be very unconventional in their thinking and their actions. Typically, they're very honest and devoted, positive, great optimism when it comes to the higher expression of Aquarius. They have a great outlook on life, typically. They're usually very passionate about what they feel called to. They can be reliable, mysterious, and they are the freedom seekers of the zodiac. And so when we look at the higher expressions of the 2, we can see how these Aquarian energies really complement or influence the 2 in a good way and kind of push them to step into their life path in a sense, right? So it's like if you signed up for Aquarius, sun, moon, rising, and you also are a life path 2 or an 11, you can see how the Aquarian energy is really assisting you in stepping into your life path. So for 2s and 11s, 2s are more introverted. Their energy is more introverted. It's more Cancerian energy, more like wanting to be behind the scenes or very nurturing, very homebodies, that sort of thing. Usually for 2, they will do great work, but you won't always see the person behind the work. You'll see the work, right? And that's the same thing with 11s. 11s are meant to share their work with the world, whether they're sharing themselves with the world or not. It's more about the inspiration and the work being shared. So it's more of an introverted energy overall. When we look at the positive traits of the 2, we see this ability to work well with others, this level of sensitivity this ability to be good team players. They're very balanced within their energy and how within their approach. They have a high level of cooperation with people. They're very kind. They're tactful. They're the peacemakers and the mediators, and they're very sincere in their actions and their words. And a lot of times they're also very intuitive and psychic. And so when we think about two energy, we can think about like relationships and balance. It's all about like relationships and balance. And so it helps to have that Aquarian energy come in that's very adaptable, right? That's very creative and sort of free-spirited and unconventional. And really I want to focus on unconventional because you really need to have sort of an unconventional way of thinking when you're doing two work, because you are meant to be sort of the observer of a situation. And you're meant to see what's broken and then figure out how to find solutions to fix the problem, to mend the problem, to bring people together, to mend the bridge that was broken. And so that can obviously be usually around relationships, whether that's like global relationships or work relationships or family relationships, right? Or individual relationships. And so it helps to be able to think unconventionally or be unconventional in your approach, because that means you're thinking outside the box. That means you're looking at the bigger picture. That means you're not falling into extremes and being influenced by the outside world. You're coming up with your own ideas, which you innately have within you. You have a wealth of wisdom within you as a two to assist in this process, because that's what you came here for. You know what I mean? Like you, as a two, you came here to be the peacemaker, to be the mediator, to help people come together. If you're fueling the fire in any way, if you're creating divisiveness in any way, if you're shaming, if you're being the antagonist, then you're not within your highest expression of your two energy. And that's fine, but you'll face challenges associated with that. So you can see how it's like, being unconventional, being the optimist, having that positive outlook, not saying that you're Pollyanna and you have rose-colored glasses on, but you are able to see the potential in people, in things, and experiences. And that sort of pushes you to continue to have hope, to find the way. And that Aquarius energy really helps you to do that, which is really beautiful. If we look at the lower expression of Aquarius and then the lower expression of the two, you can see how they kind of work hand in hand to completely halt your progress. So the lower expression of Aquarius is really like a short attention span, kind of like losing interest quickly, lack of focus. Aquarians usually have so many things going on that it's hard for them to focus on one thing, and their energy becomes really scattered. So it's kind of like, they can just lose focus and then kind of have a million things on their plate and not accomplish anything. So they just get off track very, very easily. There can be a lack of empathy, unpredictable nature. They can be stubborn, extremists, aloof in nature. They can be pessimistic, overly rebellious, and impatient. And so you can see how those traits would negatively influence the work of the two when the two is meant to be the peacemaker, the mediator, the one who brings people together. Then you have these lower expressions of the Aquarian energy, which is like, stubborn, extremist, aloof, pessimistic, lack of empathy. You need to have empathy as a two to be able to accomplish the work. And typically, that's the highest expression of the two, is to be very empathetic, to give and offer grace and receive grace. And especially the extremist part, that's the thing too. With twos, again, it's all about balance. So if you are in an extreme in any part of your life, you are out of balance and you're not fully within your two energy. So if you're in your lower expression of Aquarius, which can be an extremist, right? Fall to an extreme of one side or the other and take sides and, really divide people, then you're not showing up to that two energy the way that you're meant to show up to it. So you can see how that would cause a halt in your progress, right? The negative traits of the two are more about being timid, anxious, lack of confidence, being very moody, being indecisive, being a worrier, hypersensitive. So again, it's kind of like when you couple that with the lower expressions of the Aquarian energy, you can see how it's like everything stops. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you become much more of a recluse, much more cynical, much more stubborn, much more unpredictable in your nature, much more lack of empathy, all of those things, lack of confidence. So you stop showing up. Same thing if you're an 11, you would really have a hard time stepping into your 11 energy, which typically we see later in life for people anyway, but you would have a really hard time stepping into that 11 energy if you're stuck in, a situation where you're in lack of confidence or you're indecisive and you can't make a decision because, indecisiveness breeds influence. And so it's kind of like you would be very easily influenced by others and outside sources, which would lead to extreme behaviors, right? It's like if someone from one extreme is influencing you to believe those beliefs and those ideologies or whatever, and you're in your lower expression, then you could easily fall into those extremes. And then you're not in your higher expression of your 2 or your 11, because that's all about balance and bringing people together and not being easily influenced, but rather being unconventional and thinking outside the box to come up with solutions to problems that are bigger than the ego, right? So you can just see how those lower expressions kind of play off each other. And so again, as I always say, like the lower expressions are not bad. They're not a bad thing. They're just simply there to help to show us that side of ourselves so that we can overcome those side of ourselves and transmute that energy into something much more beneficial and helpful and a higher octave, right? Like a higher expression of ourselves. But the negative traits serve a very important purpose. And when we're in those negative expressions, we will often face challenges that will help to highlight for us, which expression we're in, how it's hindering our progress, how it feels, which is usually uncomfortable, and what we need to do to try to overcome it and move beyond it, right? Not to say that we're not going to continue to dip back in there, because that's just life, but we acquire the resources that we need to be able to move out of it more quickly and effectively, basically. So that kind of just gives you an overview of the higher expressions and the lower expressions of both the Aquarian energy and the 2 energy and the 11 energy, so that you can recognize, when you're in your higher expression. Because when you're in your higher expression, you're going to be showing up in purpose. You're going to be doing what your soul came here to do. But you can't really get there until you go through some of the lower expressions, right? Like we have to experience them. That's why we came here, to learn what we need to learn from it, to see how it feels to be in those lower expressions, to see the repercussions of being in those lower expressions. So yeah, it's all about the experience. So it's not a bad thing, but hopefully this will help you to recognize it, be aware of it, and then work on figuring out how you can move beyond it, right? If you fall into those lower expressions. Because the more that you can step into that 2 energy or your Aquarian energy, the better you'll feel. Like the way things will just begin to flow much more easily, right? So it's actually a good thing. So I hope that this was helpful. Thank you all so much for listening, and I will see you all again soon. Pisces, if you are a Pisces sun, moon, or rising, and you are also a life path number 2 or a life path number 11-2, then this reading is for you. So I want to take a look at the higher expressions and the lower expressions of Pisces, as well as the higher and lower expressions of life path number 2. 11s, I'm going to refer to you as life path number 2, because ultimately that is your life path number. The 11 is an extension of that energy. If there's something that pertains specifically to the 11 energy, then I will add it accordingly. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the energies so that you know what you're working with, what you signed up for. So Pisces, sun, moon, or rising. Pisces is a water sign. It is, and when it's in its highest expression, it's considered to be highly adaptable, to be the visionary, to be kind and gentle, highly intuitive, psychic, very creative, empathetic, generous, emotionally mature, typically laid back and agreeable. And so I want to go over the higher expressions of the 2, because you're going to see how they complement each other very, very well. They're very much like almost like mirrored energies. They're very, very similar. So 2 energy is more introverted. It's actually more Cancerian in nature, but it's also a water element. So it's very much aligned with Pisces in that aspect. When we look at the positive traits, though, you'll see the similarities. So 2s are typically, they have a strong ability to be able to work with others very easily. They're usually very sensitive souls. They are team players. They're usually very balanced within their nature and their relationships. They're very cooperative. They're very kind and tactful. They're the peacemakers and the mediators. They are very sincere in their words and their actions, and therefore people trust them easily and will often open up to them very easily. And they are also considered to be very intuitive and psychic because of that depth, right? That emotional depth. They're very in tune with themselves. 2 energy is a very feminine energy, and so, or divine feminine energy. And so when we look at the higher expression of Pisces, we see, highly adaptable, the visionaries, kind and gentle, the intuitive psychic, right? Very creative, empathetic, generous. And so it not only like adds to the 2 energy, but it also like, compounds, right? It's like, it's an additional layer of sort of assisting the 2 in stepping into their purpose, right? It's kind of like if you came to the planet and you were like, I'm going to come down as a Pisces, sun, moon, or rising, but also as a 2 or an 11, you're really setting yourself up to accomplish what you've set your mind on, which is to step into this 2 energy or step into this 11 energy. And so it's very, very complementary in nature, very, very complementary in nature. So very easy energy to work with if you're in your higher expression of both, right? There's not a lot of push-pull. There's not a lot of like, it's just very, I want to say kind of easy. It's very like each energy, the 2 and the Pisces really assist each other. So it's a very beautiful energy. What I love about it for 11s is, that is this very visionary energy, right? And so it's very creative energy. And what I love about that is for 11s, you are meant to use your creative life force in this lifetime to be inspired. And therefore, through your creations, your work, your ideas, your presence, right? To inspire others, to find their voice, to use their own creativity, to be empowered, right? So having that visionary energy, that creative energy of Pisces really assists you as an 11 to help you step into that energy. Typically, we see people step into their master energy later in life. So if you are an 11-2, then you would utilize this Pisces energy to really step into your 11 master energy when the time comes. So it's actually, like I said, it's very, very complementary, very beautiful. Pisces in their higher expression are very emotionally mature, which you as a 2 would very much need that kind of energy to be able to be the observer in a very chaotic, critical situation, right? And to be able to see the issue and come up with some kind of a solution that brings people together, that finds balance, that brings harmony. And so having that emotional maturity is crucial to that. And so the fact that you signed up for that and were like, I want Pisces energy so that I can have this emotional maturity, which of course we don't just get out of the bag, right? We've got to like learn it through the experiences, which I'll get into in a minute. But having that sort of almost like innate essence really assists the 2 energy. So it's very complementary, the 2 of them together. Okay, let's take a quick look at the lower expressions of the 2 and the Pisces energy, so you can kind of see like when you're in your lower expression, how that can hinder your progress, how that can cause issues. So the lower expression of Pisces is sort of overly emotional, right? Like hypersensitivity, overly trusting, and easily swayed or influenced into an extreme, right? They can be closed off emotionally, naive. They can be sort of in a victim mentality and very moody. What's interesting is it's very similar to the aspects or the traits of the 2 when it's in its negative shadow side. The 2 has, when it falls into its lower expression, can be very timid, can be very anxious, it can lack confidence, it can be very moody, it can be very indecisive, it can be a worrier, and it can be very hypersensitive. So really it's kind of like when you've got Pisces energy and you've got this water energy of the 2, and they come together, it's like you're kind of like an emotional wreck. It's kind of like it's very hard to move beyond that because you're so sensitive to what's happening around you, or you're so easily influenced by what's happening around you because you're so indecisive, or you can't make a solid decision because you don't trust yourself, you don't trust others, you don't trust the universe, whatever the case may be, or you're highly sensitive or closed off emotionally, like you're not even in touch with your emotions. And so it can kind of obviously put a damper on the work that you're meant to do as like the one who's supposed to be making those decisions, making those bigger decisions, being very decisive because you're meant to be the observer and looking at the situation, seeing what's flawed, seeing where things are causing divisiveness, and come in to bring the harmony, right? Like bring the solutions that will bring the harmony, that will bring people together. Again, 2 energy is all about balance and relationships. And so if you are lacking confidence or super moody or indecisive, or you are in your Pisces lower expression and you're easily swayed or influenced to some extreme, you can't possibly be, objective. You can't possibly be the observer of the situation and take it all in and see, you can't be unbiased, basically. You're going to be influenced, and so you're going to be biased. So it just really kind of, you can see how the lower expressions of the 2 and the Pisces kind of work together to halt your progress, to put a sort of, to drain the lake, and you're just sitting there in your boat and you can't go anywhere because there's no water. And so, which is funny because both of these are water energies. So yeah, it's kind of like, but really it's kind of like when you guys get into your lower expression, it's almost like there's too much water. There's just too much emotion going on, and your emotions sort of cloud your judgment or cloud your view of the world, right? And like what you need to be able to see to be able to make decisions that will help not only yourself but others around you. So the lower expression is not a bad thing. It's something we all have, and it's something that we're meant to work through and experience, because those experiences are what help us to figure out what does work, to help us to figure out the tools and the wisdom and the inspiration and what we need to be able to overcome those challenges, to elevate ourselves, and so that we can recognize when we start falling into those lower expressions in the future. So it's all about experiences, so it's not a bad thing. Those lower expressions are very specific for a reason, right? They're very, it's very clear when you fall into a lower expression for a reason, because you're meant to be able to face challenges, experiences that will help you to overcome those, so that you can see, right, through the experience, how those hinder your growth, how those hinder your progress, how those hinder you from stepping into purpose. So again, not a bad thing, and something that you'll dip in and out of throughout your lifetime. But those experiences also bring about awareness, and then that awareness allows you to find the resources and the wisdom to be able to, like I said, move out of those situations much more quickly in the future, so that you can step into your purpose of your life path number and do the things your soul came here to do, all supported by that Pisces energy, sun, moon, and rising. Which also will, are part of your purpose and part of the things that you were meant to step into, and complement each other really, really well. So I hope that helps you to be able to work with some of those higher and lower expressions of both your Pisces energy and your 2 or 11 energy. They actually really complement each other very, very well. It's just be careful of those lower expressions, because you could easily drown. And so you just want to keep your head above water. So I hope that was helpful. Thank you all so much for listening. Take care. Bye for now.